Well, I'm trying to figure out how to I'm going to just have a blank screen.
Okay.
I think I hit computer when I'm ready. Yes, it's risky. Okay. Hmm. Okay, so we're going to start by with a short. Well, I don't know how short it is. So if we get bored, you can just go stop. Anyway, that kind of goes through the 12 links, how they actually get us stuck in samsara. The traditional way that we see this list is from 1 to 12 of the links, but that's not actually how they arise in order to project us into a rebirth. So we'll review again the order in which they actually occur in order to project us into a rebirth. So it's just a review meditation. So the key is to listen. So it's a good way to remind ourselves of this topic. So first, though, let's just settle ourselves down here by bringing our mental attention to our body sitting here. And we could be aware of the noises from our actors class next door. And the temperature of the room. And all the sounds. Not being distracted by them, not being carried away by them, but just awareness. And then find the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose, going in and out of the body. And just rest here without thinking about the day or planning for later. And try to recall the reason you came this evening and generate a positive intention to use your time well. And try to generate a positive motivation for this meditation. So you can think, if I want to escape the sufferings of samsara and help free all sentient beings from suffering, I must become enlightened. Reaching enlightenment depends on completing the path to enlightenment. This includes realizing the teachings of the 12 links, understanding how they function to produce the suffering of samsara. I need renunciation, the wish to be freed from uncontrolled rebirth. So I'm going to meditate on the way the 12 links work, so I can understand how this process is beneath my own suffering, as well as the suffering and continual rebirth of all sentient beings. A full set of the 12 links, creating like this lifetime we have now, takes more than one lifetime. So in one life, the projecting causes must take place. Sometimes in that same life, the actualizing or establishing causes also take place. And then in some future life, the projected and actualized or established results occur. So the minimum is 2 lifetimes. And they don't have to be adjacent. They can be eons apart. Sometimes it takes 3 lifetimes, where the projecting causes take place in the first lifetime. The actualizing causes take place in some future lifetime, and then the projected and actualized results take place in a 3rd lifetime, and that's the maximum. But again, none of these lives have to be adjacent. A new set of the 12 links that produces a rebirth is established in this way. So first, under the influence of the root of ignorance, we engage in an action, a compositional action, the 2nd link. When it's a completed action, it places a seed on our mind stream, or a potential for a future rebirth. And this is carried by our consciousness from moment to moment, life to life, until it's either destroyed by purification or anger, or it meets the conditions to ripen. So the 3rd link is the consciousness at the time of the cause. So just think about that through every complete action that we commit with the mind of ignorance, we create potentials for another rebirth. Without generating some awareness of the power that these links have over us, we will never break free from the causes of ignorance and karma, and instead will continue to be trapped in this cycle of suffering existence. Now, either in the same lifetime or future one, at the time of death, the mind of craving, much as the eighth link, will arise, beginning the process of actualizing that potential or that seed that was placed on the consciousness. The craving will heighten and grow, becoming stronger until it becomes the mind of grasping, the ninth link, which further nourishes the seed. That karmic potency, once it has been fully nourished and activated by craving and grasping, is called becoming or existence, the 10th link. So each of these sets of actualizing causes act as the condition for a karmic potency to be empowered to develop into an actual rebirth, a new existence within samsara. And again, without generating some awareness of the power that these links have over us, we will never break free from the causes of ignorance and karma, and instead will continue to be trapped in the cycle of suffering existence. When this potency has been activated, the consciousness at the time of the result arises. And the projected result of taking on new aggregates, a new body, a new gross mind. The fourth link of name and form occurs, followed by the fifth, sixth, and seventh links of the six sense powers, contact, and feeling, as our body's developing in the womb. So at the same time we're creating a projecting cause by that karmic formation that's born out of ignorance, that places a seed on our consciousness. It's not just a cause, we're also projecting the results of that new life. It doesn't take another potency. It's contained within that complete action that has the power to ripen as a rebirth. And without generating some awareness of the power that these links have over us, we will not break free from the causes of ignorance and karma, and instead will continue to be trapped in the cycle of suffering existence. The actualized potency gives rise to a new birth within cyclic existence, the 11th link. And of course, immediately following that is the 12th link, the sufferings of aging and death. without generating some awareness of the power that these links have over us, we will never break free from the causes of ignorance and karma, and instead will continue to be trapped in the cycle of suffering existence. But when we do generate awareness of these links, we can work on our mind of craving, reducing that. We can work on our view of how things exist, undermining the ignorance that is the root of cyclic existence. We can practice ethics, develop our concentration, and fully develop our wisdom so we can liberate ourselves from this cycle. So now think that doing meditation such as this, learning about the links, is the beginning of the process of reversing the order of the links. So we want to dedicate the merits from doing these meditations to the great enlightenment when all sentient beings are freed from samsara. How'd y'all do with the noise?
I didn't notice it eventually.
Yeah, eventually it just can fall into the background. If whereas if you keep hearing it, like with that sound that it made when the door was opening and closing, I don't know what's causing it, but I thought, okay, if you keep focusing on this and it doesn't stop, you're gonna, you just have to let it go, So, and we're totally capable of doing that. We can totally just let it fall into the background, and not react to it. So in those times when we're trying to meditate, we feel like, oh, if they just quiet down, we need to remember that if we were doing something that we found really, really important or entertaining, we'd have no trouble concentrating. And so this is the point of renunciation, of developing such a strong desire to escape from this kind of existence that we, won't lose our focus when we're doing the things we need to develop in order to liberate us. So, granted, that takes a while, but it's that, every step we take to remind ourselves that really there's nothing in this cycle of existence other than suffering. Whether it's a suffering of just pain, of both mental and physical, or the suffering of change, which is what we see now as pleasure, and the all-pervasive suffering, meaning that just everything about samsara, the nature of our bodies, that it's easy to lose your life, it's hard to get your life, so it's just this, it's in the fact that everything is temporary, and so we lose everybody we love. There's just nothing that's going to have stay pleasant. All shift. So it's worthwhile to really look at these links of like craving. To really say, okay, what am I doing to reduce my craving? Because it's not craving is not the same as enjoying, you know, and or disliking, you know, which are the states of mind that give rise to either attachment or aversion, you know, which is just another form of attachment. So it really is useful to reflect on that a lot, to really notice when you're craving something, you know, and see if you can counter the craving with something that's more realistic, like, oh, this is very nice, you know, but I don't have to have more of it. I don't have to be wasting my time thinking about how to get more of it. That's just feeding the mind of craving, and it's actually taking me away from the mind of enjoyment. You know, to actually just stay with the sensation of pleasure. You know, and just, it's like when we talk about on Sundays this idea of, you know, that when strong states of mind arise, like sadness or jealousy, or I can't think of any at the moment, that we need to just sit with that feeling until, you know, not do anything, not act from that place, but just sit with it for a minute and notice that it passes, you know, that it's impermanent, and that so we can get a little distance so we can better choose our actions than just react to that state of mind in our habitual way. Yes, Darius.
How do you respond to what you perceive as the energy bubbling under that state of mind? So say
Well, I think that energy is a state of mind. I mean, there may be a physical sensation that is at the base of that energy, but the energy is that either craving, it's a disturbance, it's an agitation. Now, it may be one we like excitement, or it may be one we don't like, oh, get me out of here.
Right.
That energy is really the result of that mind, not the other way around.
Right.
And so we want to see how that's a disturbing state of mind. So this craving to be separated from, or the craving to have more of, or to be attached to, or whatever form it takes, depending on the object, is what keeps us stuck, you know, and it distracts us from the actual event. Like, you know, instead of thinking, like, say you're at a party and you meet someone, or you somehow get stuck talking to someone who doesn't seem to pause. So you feel like, I'm never going to get out of this conversation. Oh my goodness, how do I gracefully walk away, you know? And then you've ceased to listen. All you're doing is focusing on your discomfort and your desire. This is self-cherishing at its height, your desire to get out of here. Whereas if you can notice that that's what's arisen, that's the energy that's arisen, give yourself some distance, and perhaps like give the person some attention for, you know, really give them attention for a few minutes, you might be able to give them something that will benefit them, you know, like companionship for a minute or two, you know, and then be able to move forward. But if, you know, without hurting them.
But with that example in particular, I get more self-cherishing because I'm thinking, oof, maybe I give them the space and this will become even longer.
That's still self-cherishing.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. And with that particular example, I'm like, ooh, like now.
Well, but I mean, you have to look at that, oh, I am just self-cherishing here. And if I keep focusing on the self-cherishing, my suffering is going to continue.
But we agree that it might happen, but then the story might become even longer, right?
Yeah, but we still have a choice to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
you know, people, you know, aren't holding a gun to our head
Right.
in general. You know, I mean, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that we either don't have we're not comfortable letting someone else know that you're ready to walk away now. Why? Why are we not comfortable with that? I don't think that's at the root of it,
I think
actually.
that's self-cherishing too, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to seem like I'm a good person.
Yes. You want to be able to walk away with the other person thinking, oh, I so like that person. We don't like disappointing others, not because of them, but because of us. You know? And once we take responsibility for that, then we can either choose to stay, so we can look like a good guy, or we can choose not to and take the risk that this person might not like you.
Don't you think it's different in a family situation than in a social situation?
Sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it just
I mean,
depends. This is why you have to develop your own self-awareness and be able to really spot your own self-cherishing, because you can't come up with the answer that will fit every circumstance. It's going to be different, you know, and there'll be nuance in it, and you have to be able to spot them. So the more familiar you are with your own cues, you know, where you like you notice that energy, you know, and then you identify, is this aversion or attachment, you know, then you could, you know, and stuff like that. You need to really start being aware. And then this thing of like, I really like to be liked, you know, all these other factors that are in there, you know, the more familiar we can become. And this is why reflecting when you're quietly sitting at home, not in a conversation with someone else, whether it's family or strangers or whomever, that you think about what makes it difficult for like you to walk away or to remove yourself from a situation that you don't consider a good use of your time. Because then these things like, oh, I like to be liked, you know, will bubble up and you'll be able to go, oh, okay. So then we can take responsibility for that and then make our choices with that. And then, you know, and you can also look at, am I too attached to my reputation, which almost everybody on the planet is, you know? Then you can kind of look at how unrealistic it is to expect everybody to like you. You know, how that's not really, you know, it's like a total setup. You have to bend yourself in all kinds of ways to make sure that everybody will like you. And then what's really hilarious, this is one of my personal favorites, is when you think back or you run into someone years later or something and you realize you didn't make a mark on their life at all. You know, and then during that time you thought, oh, you were so important and you blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, and then you realize, well, you know, they're full of self-cherishing too. And, you know, and we barely connect at all. So it's kind of hilarious that we get ourselves all twisted into knots over simple decisions, because they really are simple decisions. We just hate making them. You know? But standing there going, I'm miserable here. What's difficult about the decision? Well, then leave. You know, that's really not a difficult decision. It's just we just don't like to do it. Why? Because we have other things going on, like reputation. And then there are times when it's important. You don't walk away from your boss. That's, again, a choice. You know, I want to keep my job. You know, I want to be respectful to their position. Whatever, you know.
So the thought that it's rude to walk away is self-cherishing?
It's a rationalization, often. This is why I say there's no just perfect answer. Because you can walk away without being rude. it doesn't mean you can walk away without being rude and that other person still won't think poorly of you.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
That also happens. And we want to be able to tell, did I handle that well or was I rude? You know, because these are skills, you know, and you can see in salesmen, good salesmen, successful salesmen, have a skill of being able to start conversations, but also to leave conversations when they need to, when they realize, you know, time to move on, I need to mingle with all the other 700 guests here, you know. So it's a skill. So it's just, but it's not the, you know, but it's still, you can do everything exactly right, and the other person could be offended because they have their stuff going on. You know, we can't control that. And that's okay that they're, you know, we're just all ordinary beings. We get hurt, and then you'll meet them 5 years from now and they won't know who you are. So you obviously didn't mar their existence.
Right.
And sometimes it's opposite.
Yeah. Oh, of course. There's always that.
Especially if you didn't care, and then you meet them 10 years later, and you find out that actually they did remember you, and you were like, why?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you know, this is what's funny,
Right.
and that's karma. You know, it's just, you know, so some of our karmic connections are positive, some are negative, some are neutral. And they don't have to match. Which is why you can fall head over heels for somebody and the other person doesn't even notice you.
There are cultural differences, for example,
Yep.
that, you know, because I'm from another country, when I came here, I encountered so many, and nobody ever told me certain. I wondered
Yeah.
for years why they are reacting to me like that, or this or that, and
And because
figure
they
out
don't know
years later.
either.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like when I was living in the nuns community in Australia, there were people from different countries. And a couple of people, they always closed the door in rooms, you know, whether they were in them or not. It's like the first thing they did was close the door. And you really, so if you were walking in and you see these people walk into another room and close the door, you know, but it's still a communal room, it's not their bedroom or something, you know, there was this kind of like, oh, what's going on, you know?
Am I not allowed to be in there?
Yeah, right. It's just this kind of awkward thing. Well, a couple of years down the road, you know, I finally either asked or somehow I know I asked, and it just fit in the conversation. It wasn't abrupt. And it turned out that in Europe, it is a habit in the countries these people were from to close the doors to save heat and air condition. You know, that's just what they do. And the way the older houses, I guess, are built or whatever. So it had absolutely nothing to do with the people in the room. You know, but Americans, as you see, our houses, you know, like we seem to think, you know, it's great to have to pay for air conditioning to 5-story buildings, you know, where there's no ceiling anywhere and everything's open and da 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 da. You know, it's a different, and of course, these European buildings are often built long before, you know, central air. You know, so it's a whole different, you know, situation. So being aware that there are many reasons why you might not hit it off with somebody. Cultural, self-cherishing, all sorts of things can help us let go of this attachment to reputation, an unrealistic idea of what it means. And it can also encourage us to learn more, you know, to notice what people do, ask questions, you know, be curious so that you can, you know, kind of connect better. But that energy is one of those clues, you know, and that's why, and so we want to try to lessen, you know, this sort of this attachment to craving. You know, that kind of, I've got to have it, or I've got to get out of here. You know, that's a real sign that we've been hooked. You know, and so it's okay to sit with, I don't like standing here talking to this person, you know, to just have that thought. I remember a monk, I was at a retreat, and, you know, the food that was being prepared by the venue, you know, not the participants. And it, you know, as many places, you know, it wasn't great vegetarian food. It was just, you know, very ordinary vegetarian food. And so this monk kept saying, every meal I just chew and go, wow, this is really bad. But, you know, not going to, I can't eat another one of these. Just, it's sustenance, that's, you know, someone else is kindly providing it, blah, blah, blah. But oh, I don't like this, you know, and sitting with that discomfort instead of trying to change it. You know?
That's hard, I think.
Yes. If this was easy, we'd all be enlightened and free from samsara. It is hard. We don't like sitting with discomfort. And craving is uncomfortable, which is why we give in. We don't like it. We want to get that fix. Or we'll just complain for the rest of our lives about that jerk we got stuck with next, you know. Oh, you should have seen the jerk I sat next to during dinner, you know.
So should we try to get rid of that in our mind? This conversation, I don't want to be here for this conversation.
Yeah,
or should we just say, I don't want to be here, but I'm here.
But I'm here. I can choose to leave. If I don't choose to leave, you know, then it's not their fault.
Right.
You know?
It's not their fault that I'm so annoyed with what they're
If
talking
anything,
about.
yeah.
It's my
It's
deal.
entirely our response. Because after all, we are not entertaining all the time.
No. It's very
And our interests don't interest everybody. You know, and sometimes they're sitting there going, I'm not going to stop talking because then I'd have to hear her talk. And
No, they may be talking because they think you are listening so well, and maybe you are interested.
Yes,
We
there are all
say that.
sorts of possibilities.
Yeah.
You know, but it really, you know, but often we think I would never bore someone like he's boring me, and that's not true.
so presumptuous.
Yeah, well, it's self-cherishing. It's this total story we make up because we want to feel good about ourselves. You know.
And we also do this thing where we blame them. We say, like, we'll say the other guys or girl, woman is like, she's so unaware. She lacks self-awareness.
Yeah.
How could she not know I was bored? Or how could he not know I was bored?
Right. Like, you're the important person here.
Right.
This is what's so hilarious. You know, it's like, I'm the most important person in the room, so please take care.
Yeah.
You know, it's hilarious.
Right.
And this is why stepping back is helpful, because we can see ourselves being kind of hilarious. You know, because otherwise, if we don't step back, our self-cherishing's making us miserable. You know, it's creating some story like, oh my God, why did I even come to this event? You know, and you just make yourself miserable the rest of the time that you're stuck there, you know, and it's just, and you're focused on being stuck there instead of accepting and just, who knows what can happen then. You know, we've stopped all opportunity by deciding this is intolerable and every moment of it will be intolerable. So I'm just going to be intolerant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So we can really look at ourselves when we're away from the situation. You know, like if we can just think back on some meeting that we didn't feel very good about, and then we look at what's our part of that. You know, did we spend our whole time in our mind complaining about it? Did we expect too much? Did we do this? Are we unskillful with the way we present information? Are we unskillful in the way we receive information? Do I know anything about this person? do I have those social skills? Do I need to develop some new social skills? So, you know, like when I became a nun, all of a sudden, you know, like if you go someplace and there's, you know, another clergy, I'm supposed to know what to do. You're like, oh, of course you go up and you talk. I have no clue how to make those conversations. I don't have any experience with it. I just get frozen. Oh, please. You know? You know, fortunately, they usually have the grace to come up to me and make me feel at ease, because I just like, you know, and you go to these interfaith things and, you know, and so there often is, you know, and you know, I just have no clue. It's not like I spent my whole life going to church and being just used to that kind of thing, you know. I stopped going to church at 12. I have no clue how to talk to other clergy. And I don't know much about their religion. So, you know, I'm just kind of a useless companion on those. So, you know, it's interesting. So I've had to really work hard at just being able to say hello, because if you say hello, then you know there's going to be something next. So it's just getting it started was really scary. But so you just have to do it, you know, and then try to learn. You know, I watch other people and try to see if, you know, well, maybe I can do that. But, you know, so it's just a matter of accepting responsibility for your own state of euphoria or misery. And then recognizing that euphoria and misery are agitated states. They're not actually desirable states of mind. They feed craving and grasping. And so why not just enjoy things and not enjoy things? As opposed, you know, not making it a big deal. So it's interesting. But you do have to practice. And you have to think about it. What's going on here? Why did I stay there for the whole deal? You know, because it's, you know, and you do get better at making, just like everybody, maybe we're losing the skill because we can screen our calls. You know, so we don't have to develop, we just don't pick up if we talk to somebody.
Right.
So I don't know. Anyway, but I look at my parents were certainly much better at, you know, just the art of conversation with people you don't know. You know, so, and it's a nice skill. It's not, you know, it's not a stupid skill. From my view, it's really lovely that my father could talk to anyone. He traveled a lot on his job. He was a lawyer, you know, and he would pick up people's accents, and he was so afraid that they would think he was being rude and making fun of them, you know, so he tried really hard not to do it, but he just, that's what he would do. He just fall into their cadence and rhythm of speaking. But he was genuinely interested in other people's lives, you know, and that's what helped him. Or, you know, maybe he developed that. So, too bad I wasn't on those trips to see how he did it, but, you know. So looking at the way craving, whether it's attachment or aversion, that desire to change, either by getting something more, or getting it permanently, or pushing away and escaping from the situation, they arise from self-cherishing. And this self-cherishing is, you know, comes from this misunderstanding of how we exist. You know, we get very attached to the self. And then we are the center of our universe, and we do everything from that point of view. So we really need, the more we can exchange self for others, you know, where we cherish others, you know, we put others first, as opposed to me first, you second, meaning everybody else second. You know, we try to put others' needs first. I mean, at least not in the sense of having to overdo or something, but just at least in the sense of noticing what other people's needs might be. Because when you're caught in the self-cherishing, if you're doing everything in order to meet your desires, you don't really even see the other person.
Yeah.
It's all within the context of what's in it for me. And that's not a good place to start from. Yeah.
What if it, I want to use the right word, so forgive me if I don't. What if it feels as if you were always trying to make another person comfortable, even, you know, if it means that you're mentally tired and then sometimes both mentally and physically tired, and there's like,
And you want to look at that issue, and that's an issue, you know, that you have. It's sort of like you need to look and see if you are again distorting your abilities and extending beyond your limits
okay,
for the sake of what, you know,
Yeah.
being liked, being appreciated,
it's
being
reputation again.
yeah, reputation's really tough. So, and you want to be able, the reason why awareness is so helpful is usually what happens is once we overextend ourselves, we tend to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hurt people. Then we make it their fault. They're unappreciative, abusive, blah, 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 you know, and then we damage people and we damage relationships, you know, and we've already damaged ourselves by overextending ourselves. So there's nothing but harm left there. So we might as, you know, so it's a matter, and unfortunately it's not like, you know, we can wear a fit, you know, other cherishing enough for today, and then go, ding. We have to get really familiar with ourselves and also accept that sometimes we're going to overdo it and sometimes we're going to underdo it, you know. Recognizing our limitations is...
That's a good idea for somebody to...
Yeah, I'd love to see how they would measure it.
Thermometers, mood, and other thermometers.
Well, it'd be lovely if it could just, you know, like, give you a little buzz, like, you're about to get impatient.
Yeah.
That would be so helpful for me.
You're about to have a fit. That's it.
I mean, look at poor Senator Conyers. Is that his name?
Conyers.
That, you know, has been accused of sexual harassment, and while he was being accused by a former employee who actually got a financial settlement, he ended up in the hospital. I mean, he's in the hospital with stress. You know, now he's 88, so, you know, but this is what happens if we don't learn how to respond with a calm mind. You know, we just, you know, we can cause ourselves a lot of harm. So, it's, you know, this is our task.
Are we also tasked with, if we've overextended ourselves and then we've lost our cool? I'll admit that I'm the kind of person who will lose his cool if I overextend myself. Do you, and it's not about me, sorry, but are you supposed to go
Only
back
you.
and then apologize?
Yes.
Well, you can apologize if the situation is appropriate to apologize. You know, I mean, I have gone back, you know, to total strangers and said, I'm sorry, I was rude to you yesterday. And, you know.
And they'll say, what are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still, it's like, if they then remember an hour later, you know, they'll have been validated that, because, I mean, sometimes we know we're rude. And so it's nice to be able to apologize and not worry about whether they remember or anything, you know. It's just, you know, it's, you know, now, if that would be, sometimes that's just not possible.
Right.
You know, either you've, I've even done it in the middle of a sentence, you know, where I've just kind of gone, you know, I wasn't listening to you, so I may not be responding to your question. Would you mind saying it again?
You've done that here, I love it, actually.
Well, we get distracted sometimes with, you know, it just suddenly we're distracted. That's how I lose my train of thought, you know, and so we do that with each other too. And I find it's so much, it's better than faking it, you know, in terms of having an effective conversation. And that usually people are pretty kind because they've done it, you know, they're familiar with the feeling. So, and of course it's easier the older you get. We have all sorts of built-in excuses. I'm sorry, I've already forgotten what you asked me. But, you know, and of course usually we do forget because we've been distracted. It's just, And if we're distracted really close to the question, I mean, our brain hasn't had the time to make that a longer memory, whatever, however they call it. But it's about, these things become easier to do the more self-aware you are. The more that you just recognize it, and it doesn't necessarily stop you. I mean, you still might do whatever, but eventually you will not do something from that spot. Not all the time or whatever, but you get better at it. You take responsibility for your choices. And you see this even with people, people don't necessarily do this to undermine self-cherishing. Some people are very self-aware because of their self-cherishing. Oh, this isn't working for me. Bam! They're on to the next situation, But it's so your motivation, we do want to, check in and correct our motivations, and stuff. So, because sometimes, it's a kindness, it's an act of generosity to stay in a situation that's not your favorite, for the sake of someone else. Even if it's like your partner and it's their boss. So those are easy examples. But, or you see someone who's in distress, and so, if you ever seen someone like in tears, and you just at least check in, just want to check in and see if you need my help or want some company,
This might be silly. I find that hard to do as a guy if it's a woman, because I feel like I'm being creepy.
Yep, and that may be, you see, that might be a circumstance where you're taking into account the context, because I think that's true. I think that we have to watch those things.
Okay.
It's, but it's like people, I've noticed that, some people are just really good. They see someone's car broken down on the road, on the side of the road, and they don't pass it. They stop and just ask them if they need you to call or blah blah blah. They don't get out of their car. They don't take risk, of maybe putting themselves in danger, but they're kind enough to at least make sure the person has their cell phone or whatever, and it's just kind. Most of us feel too busy to do it, or feel like they could never get back into traffic, which is why I would never do it on the highway. But, I really appreciate the people who do, because I've been there. I've had my car break down on a highway in the middle of the night. It was like midnight. So at 4, when I'm frozen, finally a police officer had come by, and stopped. And I was out of gas because my dashboard was broken.
Wow.
And unfortunately, it was Sunday morning by this time, and in this particular period of time, gas stations weren't open on Sunday because there was the so-called gas shortage. So it was a real problem. The policeman didn't have a good answer. I mean, we were all just sort of like, oh, this is terribly inconvenient. So, but I'm so glad he stopped because I was freezing. It was like 30 degrees or something, Oh, it was just terrible. But I was scared to like signal, I only wanted a police officer to stop. But, and he was the only one who did. It all worked out.
That's what you wanted.
Oh, okay. So are we getting some drift here? Okay. So when we talk about craving, it leads to grasping, and that's just a heightened, where you're, really holding on tight to either, at the time of death, it's, when we really don't want to let go of this life. We're grasping after this body, we're grasping after our loved ones, all that. And that's a condition for, this karmic potency to ripen. So you want it to be a good one. And the less grasping you are, the more likely it will be a good one. So like you can think about it in the sense of like if you really are just working on not distressing your kids, or not, letting your loved ones know that,
It's all fine. Yeah.
it's all fine, you're ready. Those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So about cause and effect and karma. So there are many causes. Well, there are many things that have result in the same life. Let's say you stole something, you robbed the bank, they caught you, you go to jail.
That may not be from this life though.
Okay, so fine. Well, right. Well, we don't know, but you could have a seed for stealing
Right.
already. But so then with everything would be like that. But okay, you did this. You go to jail. You pay the price. So what happens with the karmic seed in the next life? Because in a way you kind of paid here and for your action, and if you also regret what you did,
Yes, that's a big key there.
if you don't regret, then obviously you will have the seed still for next life.
So, but when that seed ripens, it exhausts.
Right.
So you go to jail,
Right.
and then that seed will exhaust.
Yeah.
So the thing that can cause that to happen again in the next life, is not purifying the other habits. You've done this. You've done this many times. So, if you don't have any regret, if you just only regret getting caught, you're really not doing anything to undermine the potency of all the other seeds for stealing that are on your consciousness. So, it's unlikely to do anything for the next life.
Okay.
You may not be, I think they're two separate things. Like the result of ending up in jail, that doesn't happen to everybody,
Yeah, sure.
and that's karma. So the not getting caught is some other completing karmic condition. They're not related. This is they're different because they're different actions. The stealing at the bank is a different action than getting caught by the police. They're two different things.
So true. 'Cause so true. People rob banks and don't get caught.
Right.
People steal candy bars and don't get caught. Someone
Right.
steals a piece of gum and they get caught.
Yeah. Some people shoplift their whole lives
Never get caught.
and never get caught until they're 82. It's weird, but it's like their karma for not getting caught has run out.
Okay, so like if they never got caught, but they regret it, let's say, I don't know, they were in terrible circumstances, maybe you're young,
Yeah, that's
ran away
different.
from
Yeah.
home and stole things and so on, but later in life they
Yeah.
don't do it anymore and they regret it. So
They'd be purifying the future.
because they regret, they are purifying
Yeah.
just by the action of regret.
That's why it's
and
so
not
important.
doing it anymore. They
Yeah,
purify
regret and
the seed
resolve
for
are
the-
so important because that's what's going to determine that. Because when you think about it, we're talking about mind. So you need to transform your mind. So if you really regret something and resolve not to do it again, what you've done is changed your mind.
Ooh.
And the more powerful you are, the more determined you are, the more impact that regret and resolve will have as far as your seeds, purifying your seeds. So, so that regret, the more sincere it is, the more that you truly take it in what you've done, you know, and why it's harmful to yourself and others. You know, that's really important. And then recognizing you really do not want to cause that suffering in the future, and you do not want to reap the results of that either. You know, that you don't, you're sorry for to yourself. You have self-compassion, knowing, oh, I must have a strong habit of this, and you really regret having done it for others and yourself. That's going to help you purify those seeds so they don't ripen in the future. You know, I mean, obviously it's a process. So this is why developing a responsibility for the way we think is so important. You know, to own it. Oh yeah, I'm really thinking that way. I'm trying to get away with it again. You know, it's okay. Obviously, we have tons of things to work on, so it's okay to kind of go, well, I'm just not there yet, you know. But we don't want to do that with everything. You know, we need to counter our self-cherishing. We need to counter this idea that we're the center of the universe, you know, so that we can start exchanging self for others. And also, we reduce our own suffering in the moment. The more we can just step back and go, what are you doing? You know, like, really, you're going to yell at somebody? Is this really that important? You know, or, you know, am I really going to spend another night sitting with people that I have nothing in common with, that are just, you know, killing time? You know, this is the only life I've got. I'm going to, you know, not do that. So it's, you know, taking responsibility. It's hard. So one of the things, you know, this idea of the karma, placing these potencies for a future rebirth, I used the word complete. And if you took the karma module, you know, a complete action has 4 parts. And so it's when you do when you fulfill all 4 parts that this potency you put on your mind stream has the potential to actually cause a rebirth. Not all of our actions have that, you know, potential, you know. But if you have, you know, the intention and you do the action, and the action actually is completed before you die, like, you know, if you shoot someone and you die first, then you don't have a complete action of killing. You do have probably a complete action of malice, but you don't have, because they didn't actually die before you. So that, you know, your continuum's moved on, you know. But, so it's, you know, the Buddha described this in a very precise way. So, anyway, but it's not like you wouldn't have a result from that action of shooting someone. You would have a result from that. And the desire to kill someone is a mental action. You have completed that, unless you regret it as soon as you do it. You know, but, and then it becomes really heavy if you're happy about it. You know, or you do something with real malice.
So regretting and resolving is what purifies the seed.
Yes, because you're resolving not to do it again, and you're really regretting that you caused this harm.
But if you do it again, then you haven't really resolved that.
Right. Then, yeah. So you have to keep working at it. You know, it's like, this is why, you know, there's certain things we might, you know, be able to just, I am never going to do that again in this life. But most things aren't like that. Most things are, I'm going to do my best at the next meeting not to lose my patience just because we're in a meeting. Of course we have meetings. You know, and it's I don't participate well because I'm so impatient sitting through the meeting. You know, whatever. So we just have to work at it. Is this making any sense?
It does.
And so the more we work at that, then, you know, this helps us just to be so much less reactive. You know, to be able to step back just a little bit of distance so we don't just react in our habitual way, but to actually choose how we act. And so this means, you know, with a practice, at the time of death, we also can do that. We can put a little distance and not be so grasping and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I believe this is related, and I hope it is. How do you deal with, since I've been coming to classes frequently, except when I'm out of town, like I have this sometimes overwhelming fear because you don't know when your time is up.
Right.
And I'm going to die before I've done all of this work. And, what if I want out of the cycle of suffering, in this lifetime? So, in my head, sometimes it doesn't allow me to sleep. I'm like, what if you die tonight? You're not out of the cycle. You haven't done it. There's all this stuff you haven't done yet. You could die and you're going to come back.
That's when it's good to do a purification practice or something. Just to, okay, well, at least the least I can do is purify what I did today that wasn't so good and make the resolve to try harder tomorrow. Because the fear, it's not like, the fear is also grasping at the outcome.
Yeah, okay.
So we want to go, okay, well, it might not happen in this life. At least what I want to do is have a good shot at the next life. I need good conditions, all that kind of stuff. So, it's recognize the self-cherishing that's in the fear,
Mm-hmm.
And realize, well, a lot of good that's going to do. Everybody dies,
Yeah.
So no one knows when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like I've had 2 friends with stage 4 cancer, and both of them have well, one of them's finally died, but it took her 5 years. They thought it would take 3 months, and the other one, is just sort of hanging out going, they say there's nothing you can do for me, but I'm not dead yet, kind of thing. And in the meantime, 3 of our friends have died, so it's sort of this, really being able to laugh at ourselves that like we're in control of that. That's the whole point. We're in uncontrolled death and rebirth.
But what you said was so impactful just now, because you just said, and I hadn't realized it, and it makes me a little sad because you said, I might not be able to resolve it in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that I can.
Well, that's okay. But might as well have some confidence.
Yeah.
But when it turns to fear, you're not assuming you can. When that mind arises, you're assuming you won't.
Yes, that's right.
And that you're gonna, blah, blah, blah. And it's not productive.
You're right.
Fear is not, it's useful to have a little bit of fear about, I want to change my mind, work on my mind, because that can help you do it. But some people get paralyzed by fear, and so fear doesn't really help them. So you have to kind of, there's a book, Wholesome Fear, I think, that, was it Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Kathleen McDonald?
I think so.
Yeah.
A healthy fear can motivate us to get our act together.
Right.
But an excessive fear can.
It's no point. It's just, it's rumination. It's rehearsing fear.
Right. That's right. And
It's
so you taught 3 weeks ago, I think it's preoccupation.
Yeah.
I found that very helpful.
Yeah.
Because I asked, my question was, is there such a thing as overthinking? You said, yes, overthinking is preoccupation.
Yeah. Well, and this is why, and it seems so counterintuitive to say, okay, but we have to become more self-aware. So that's it, so it's a funny line where we just want to look. We don't have to follow all our storylines. We never leave the house.
Yeah.
So we just really have to be aware, and then we get to make more choices rather than just being reactive. And then slowly over time it becomes a habit, so you don't have to be preoccupied. It's just a habit of looking, so that you can't hide from yourself or rationalize yourself to death. Geez, which we do, constantly. But it's like, as long as we can at least say, yeah, I'm rationalizing again. I'm trying to come up with a good reason for my self-cherishing. But, that's all we can do, at the beginning. And some things we actually can kind of reduce the power, but just that little bit of distance, so we quit being the star of our little story, as if nobody else is there.
Right.
You know, we're all little, what's that word, prima donna, divas, whatever, you know, we're just, and we need to do less of that. So, and we know people who are really good at not doing that. And then we also know people who are really good at doing that. So, you know, so we're somewhere in between, most of us, and it's just, but the people who aren't like that, you know, that shows you it's possible to be born in the same way we're born, you know, and not become the center of the universe, you know, and also not be self-abusive, you know, that you just, you know, have a sort of a, you know, those rare people that seem to have a functional life, so childhood and all those things, but, you know, they just created the cause for that by learning how not to be so reactive. It's challenging, but it's worth it. And, you know, if the Buddhist teachings are correct, it's worth it. And even if the Buddhist teachings are not correct about rebirth and all this stuff, clearly we live a better life and we do less harm to ourselves and others the more aware we are of what we're doing. So, and all of this can help undermine our sense of, you know, this sense of self and other, this dualism we live with, as if, you know, other people are really, you know, vastly different than we are, except those people we like, and then we hope we're really alike because we like them. So, lots to think about.
Yeah.
But I think with things, when fear arises, you can use it for first you just let it be, you know, don't feed it, you know, all those stories, you know, don't feed it. And one of the tricks I do is, or have done, you know, is just kind of, if it's causing trouble falling asleep, is go, well, I can't do anything about it right now.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But let's hope it motivates me to get up in the morning and, you know, set a motivation, and, you know, and do well.
Scarlett O'Hara trick. I'll think about it tomorrow.
Right, right. You know, hopefully a little better than that.
Yeah. It doesn't work for me.
So renunciation. Renunciation is this idea that we really want to get out of suffering, cyclic existence, you know. Yet there's so much stuff we like in this existence. So it's really a challenge to start discerning the difference between enjoying and craving. You know? So when you're enjoying something, instead of feeding the storyline of I have to have more, or this is going to run out, you know, where you miss the whole experience anyway, except for that first moment of going, ooh, I like this, is to, you know, start, you know, thinking, oh, you know, I rejoice in whatever action, you know, that the previous caretakers of this mind, you know, they created the cause for this enjoyment, you know, so thank you very much. You know, have gratitude for the fact that we have positive things happen. And not chase it. I think that's part of the reason we give our merits away when we dedicate at the end of things, is we don't want to become a hoarder of merit. We don't want to be miserly with merit. We also don't want to make it the end point. It's like, I'm doing this just for the merit. You know, it's fine to, you know, use that as an incentive to help yourself change, but to recognize that you know, it's like that, you know, like we do things for a reward or because it's the right thing to do. You know, it's like nice if the right thing to do comes with a reward, which the Buddha said it does. It just takes time. But, you know, if we're always thinking about what's in it for us, that will sabotage our efforts to change our mind. I don't know what time to, okay. Check the time. So, all right. So, what kinds of things can we do to help break the cycle? So we talked about purification practice. So purification practice can only purify seeds that have not ripened yet. You know? So since the activating conditions, you know, this craving, grasping, and becoming, they activate a potency. That potency includes the results of the type of life you're going to have, you know, whether you're born as a human or an ant, you know, that you have, it has a lifespan. So from the moment of birth, your death is already in the picture. You know, it's there. It not only, we don't know how we'll die or when we'll die, but that seed has a lifespan to it. So if you, but we can also, just because, why should it be simple? You can also have untimely deaths. So even, you know, it's possible to die and it not having completed your lifespan of that karmic potency that has ripened.
But what do you mean? Is that deterministic? That you are born with certain...
You're born with a lifespan. It's not deterministic in the sense that you could die an untimely death before your lifespan's exhausted.
But you cannot prolong.
You cannot prolong it.
So it doesn't matter what we do.
No, not as far as prolonging
like
the life.
health,
Yes, that matters because you can die an untimely death.
You can cut it short.
You can cut it short. You
cut it
just
short.
can't make it longer.
I see.
So
like taking care of yourself.
all that
health-wise,
matters.
It only matters in a sense that you don't live shorter than...
Yeah, I mean, like in other words, if you don't take care of your health and you don't exercise and you don't eat right and you have a heart attack and you die at 36, you know, it's entirely possible that you had 50 years left of your lifespan and you cut it short because you didn't cherish this precious human rebirth. So it definitely matters. But it also explains why some people can have, I mean, we don't, only a Buddha can know whether someone actually lived out their lifespan or not, you know, so, you know, because it's possible that, you know how women can miscarry, you know, after conception. That could be someone, the being that was miscarried, that's correct, could have had a little bit of leftover life. You know?
So then that was his lifespan.
Yeah, that it was actually its lifespan. You know? So another person, though, could be aborted and it'd be their karma, you know, to be conceived to someone who decides to abort or has, you know, falls down the stairs or, you know, whatever. You know, so we can't tell, but it doesn't, but just the time, you know, the Buddha said that this particular world system, and for human beings, there is an indefinite length of time. So some beings have a second of time, some human beings have, you know, 125 years of time, you know, so it's variable. But the seed, when it ripens for a rebirth, has a lifespan in it. Partly because birth, there's going to be death.
Right.
So you're activating both the beginning of the and the end. So, Because you don't need, disintegration is just natural. So it's part of the law of karma. So you don't need a second seed for the end of something.
Right.
It's built into the start of something. So since everything's impermanent, everything that's produced is impermanent. So, but so seeds that haven't been ripened, you know, so this also explains why some people who have a sickly life, you know, that their whole life is sickly, but they still don't die, you know, at a young age or something, you know, they just never well. You know, I mean, you can think of people like Thich Nhat Hanh, who was born with an enlarged heart, I think, is the condition. So he's had heart problems always. Well, he's, what, 88 or something now, you know, and he's had poor health pretty much his whole adult life. It's just that, you know, he takes care of it, and other people help him take care of it and all that kind of stuff, and he just didn't have the karma to die early. You know, so if he's not a Buddha, you know, he's, you know, there you go. So, but seeds that haven't been ripened, we can purify them, and you can make them so that they can't produce a result. When you realize emptiness, you actually, you know, so now you know how things actually exist. You're no longer, you know, under this mistaken fundamental ignorance. And now you know, you have a direct perception of it. You actually experience the way things exist, or the way they don't exist, or something like that. Gotta watch those negatives. So, at that point, once you've perfected the wisdom of realizing emptiness, you are liberated from cyclic existence, and all those seeds, you know, have been rendered, they have no foundation anymore. They've been rendered totally, you know,
Deleted.
yeah, they're deleted. It's sort of like they call it a cessation, as opposed to like you eliminated them. Your mind has changed. They just don't exist there anymore, because the basis for them to exist is gone. You have no ignorance for them to, you'll never do those actions again. So that's why they generally don't talk about karma when you talk about Buddhas. They're kind of done with that. Karma's really talking about, you know, this uncontrolled cause and effect thing going on by contaminated sentient beings.
But then still, so on that level, the bodhisattva still has to perfect, I guess, acquire more wisdom.
They have to perfect, they have to remove the obstacles to omniscience. But that's why the 8th, 9th, and 10th grounds are called pure grounds. Because they're liberated from samsara, but they haven't removed the obstacles to omniscience.
So they would be on a level of arhat? Like
Yeah, they're arhats, and they just usually don't use that term because that's not their goal.
Right.
Arhat is what's used to describe someone who's liberated.
Mm.
But they're Mahayana arhats, bodhisattvas, yeah. So,
And that's because their goal is not to be liberated, their goal is to help others.
right, so they're headed for enlightenment. And of course, the Buddha says everybody heads for enlightenment. I mean, once you're liberated, after you've enjoyed your bliss, you know there's more work to do. And you also know it's possible to do it, you know. So then, of course, they help others. But they have to accumulate a lot of merit or something, I don't know. They have more work to do. If your goal was to be liberated, you still have to create the mind that wants to free everybody else. And that's, you have to accumulate a lot of merit. It's much faster for them to go through those levels, but for those who start with wanting to do that, they don't have to redo anything. You know, so it's faster from that point of view. But anyway, I'm so far away from that, it's, you know, doesn't matter at this point. But the point is, though, is that I think this is why it's emphasized so much to not set your goal short, you know. so that you stay on the Mahayana path, you accumulate all your merits so that you don't have to, you know, come back and go back to the path of accumulation and accumulate more merit. So, and what's interesting is this mind. They say that the mind of bodhicitta, the mind that wants to become enlightened for the benefit of others, you know, when you have that uncontrived mind, so you've entered the Mahayana path of accumulation, that mind, you just generate unimaginable more merit with everything you do, because now all your thoughts are influenced by that mind, instead of the mind that just wants to get out. So you actually want to get out, but you also want to remove all the obstacles to being able to help everybody else get out. So, all right. You don't have to run away.
Yeah.
Unless you have to spit. Feel free. So the causes of these, so this is craving. It's really important to work on craving. Because stimulating sense objects, we tend to chase.
So, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It's
I've realized that I don't know how. I don't know if anyone else feels this way. I don't know how to enjoy without craving. I thought I did, but say there's a particular candy bar. This is not related to you, I promise. That I really enjoy. And so I said, I want to have that candy bar tonight. And I realized when I'm eating it, it doesn't taste like it did the last time. I was like, that was craving.
Well, that craving for it has a built-in expectation.
Right.
And so when you taste it, if it doesn't meet up with that expectation,
right,
then you're disappointed and you have aversion arise. And then, again, you're not staying with the moment.
Right. Right. How do you enjoy without craving?
You have to keep interrupting your mind. It's like you enjoy it, and when your mind starts to go, to the next time you can enjoy it, you have to go, wait a minute, I'm not finished enjoying it now.
Right.
Let's stay here, because here is nice. You start to recognize how little you live your life.
Yeah, that's right. I can see that.
Yeah, you're just plowing through to the next thing. So it's usually we enjoy something for that first moment.
Yeah.
Maybe a second moment. And then if we get distracted, we might enjoy it again when we come back to it.
Yeah.
As opposed to if we start following the story of craving. Which is what happens when we're miserable. When we're in that situation where we would like to get out of this conversation, and all we're doing is thinking about how you have to get out. It's much easier to see when it's discomfort, that you're feeding a story and you're just, like you're not even present anymore. So why suffer? It's kind of crazy. So we need to start understanding we're doing that also with things we like. We immediately are going in our mind to some other moment instead of just enjoying this, this moment, this moment, this moment.
Or trying to extend it.
Right. Yeah.
So does the renunciation of samsara depend actually on, it seems, developing more aversion for samsara than craving?
Yes, but it's more than it's really an understanding that there's nothing in it for us. It's not so much an aversion to what we perceive as suffering. It's this acceptance that even the stuff that we think is pleasure is actually suffering. It will end, as opposed to what happens if you're liberated.
But cannot be also the feeling that, I've had enough, there is a lot of pleasure, but there are so many terrible things that for me, the terrible things are
the price is too high.
Stronger than the pleasurable, and I want out.
Yeah. Yes, and then slowly, I think as you develop that mind that's determined to get out, you start to see the other things as seducers. that just, that so you don't get distracted and think that just because, my health is good, I have food I like, my partner's nice, all these things that, it's good enough. And then you quit working on trying to get out. So it's like people practice when the suffering's obvious. People don't practice as hard when the suffering's not so obvious. So it's a matter of slowly really starting to accept that all the pleasures that are here can keep you trapped. And that there's something
they
better.
Are very permanent. Then okay, for a while it's
Yep.
nicey, and then boom, again.
Yeah.
Something
That's what it is. It's really just you're hungry, so you have the pain of hunger, and then you eat something, and you have the pleasure of eating, which is actually the relief from not being hungry.
Right.
And then you overeat, and so now you're back to suffering, and there's just and of course, but this is why if we just enjoy the moment and not grasp onto it, to want it to last again and again and again, or even have the expectation again and again and again. That kind of thing is just, it's pointless.
But so it's kind of, but it's kind of negative state of mind in some ways.
Well, it's
that you have to develop in order to renounce.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's a negative state of mind. I think it's an understanding of the truth of suffering.
But on some level, you have to feel like that's
You have to
enough.
know that the truth of
I've
suffering.
had it.
Yes, but again, it's not because it's that that if there's a way out, you recognize there isn't, any kind of reliable happiness in samsara. And the price is awfully high. It's just tragic when you think about it.
Okay, so that's actually a correct state of mind.
Yes, it's a correct state of mind. It's a realization of the truth of suffering. That's why this module talks a lot about suffering, if you do the readings, because that's what it is. It's when renunciation is this recognition that this is not a pleasure grove, as they say in Guru Puja. And Rinpoche likes to talk about, don't be fooled. It's not a beautiful park. That samsara, in spite of the beautiful parks, is really, like if you really look at nature, it's a concentration camp of torture. It's just, we talk about, the amazing thing of nature. Yes, everything kills something else to survive, It's really horrid.
And the ones who don't kill are always looking like that.
Yeah, they're
like,
terrified.
If you watch birds or animals,
Yeah.
they always like
They know that
even
they are the
domestic,
prey.
Cats,
Yeah, Rinpoche says if you could see the mind of an animal, you would no longer wish to be one, because they're always in danger, and they know it. So, all right. So.
Classes are too short.
finishing on a positive note.
Nicole's about to just fall over,
Sorry, Nicole.
You chose to stay. So, anyway, all right. So now we dedicate our merits. So, since this is such a good dedication, and it makes you move so that you'll be a little awake when you drive home. So, 246. I'm sorry, I forgot that I didn't actually say that out loud. So it's always helpful to remember that there are a lot of people, and probably more people than not, suffering in this way. So when we're thinking about, giving them our merits in order to reduce their suffering, it's not just, they really are suffering. Not just ourselves are suffering. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So, Sunday is Geshe Tinley from the Boston Center. So join us, try to come, like 11:15 so you can get your tea and settle down. So if you want to join us on Saturday night, December 9th, a week from Saturday, for a kind of a social fundraising gathering, we're going to have curry, but you need to buy your ticket so we know you're coming so that we can feed you. So, but it's $25.
It's here?
Yes, it's here.
So, and this is our chef, one of our chefs.
She's going to
Oh,
cook
cool.
Yeah,
Nepali food, dal and rice.
curry.
No, it's more gonna be like a Thai coconut curry, only because I think that one tastes better. And
I like it.
And for our
Perfect reason.
taste buds, we're trying to appease the taste buds. But yeah, rice and some chana masala maybe. And
That's exciting.
yeah.
Yes, so please, join us for that. Is there anything